Want to thank everyone for joining this our session today on leveraging automation to help meet the NIST 800-171 and CMMC audit requirements. As you know, very hot topic in the government sector these days. And presenting with me today, I'm Tom Leahy. I am the Senior Vice President of Sales and Business Development with SureShield. I have Sanjay Kumar, who is our Chief Executive Officer, who will be presenting as well. We both have combined about 65, almost 70 years in the compliance, risk, and safety areas. And we're really pleased to have the folks who are here to join us today and to talk about the current and upcoming requirements that will affect those of you who are serving as part of the defense industrial base. Dr. Kumar or Sanjay will give a little bit of an overview of, obviously what the defense industrial base is, what are some of the current and new certification requirements that are coming as it relates to both NIST 800-171 and then the newly implemented or newly planned to be implemented cybersecurity maturity model process and certification. And then we're going to talk and show you how leveraging tools that companies like SureShield can provide can help make this process a lot more efficient, a lot more effective, and a lot more cost effective. And we'll give just a very brief general overview of the platform and product offerings that are offered as part of that. And then we will go ahead and take questions. You'll note in your toolbar at the bottom, there is an area for Q&A. So please submit your questions through that. At the conclusion of the presentation, we'll pause to take any questions you may have. Our intent is to not use the full hour if not need be, and leave plenty of time for interaction with you all. So with that, Sanjay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everybody. As Tom pointed out, my name is Sanjay Kumar. More than happy to talk to you about the new requirements that are coming up for the defense industrial base. And I'm assuming that most of you that have joined the call today are contractors or vendors that service the Department of Defense or governmental agencies. As Tom indicated, today's webinar will highlight the increasing need for businesses like yours to establish good automated systems and data-driven solutions that will allow you to keep on top of the changing compliance requirements that are now becoming applicable from the DoD. More than ever, just even going back just a couple of weeks back with the SolarWinds hack and the like, keeping confidential government and military information secure from prying eyes has become critical to governmental agencies as well as for the sovereignty of the country and our economy. Theft of intellectual property and confidential unclassified information by foreign agents and governments, especially China and Russia, continues to remain a big concern for the DoD. The recent SolarWinds hack highlights the widespread complexity of foreign agents and the sophistication that was used to orchestrate the data hack and breaches. Nobody really, literally, as of this point, is immune. All we can do is basically put in mitigating safeguards to make sure that breaches like that do not occur. Today, the estimated number of contractors that are considered to be part of the defense industrial base is literally over 300,000. All of these contractors are affected by the new DFARS regulation changes. Prior to introduction of the CMMC, all contractors were required to self-certify to the NIST 800-171 requirements. However, this self-certification process was found to be insufficient, lacking the necessary checks and balances that needed to be there. There were a lot of compliance deficiencies that were literally found, on the side of the businesses. So CMMC was introduced to basically take care of that. So the DFARS establishes the need for contractors to protect controlled unclassified information, CUI as the acronym stands, or federal contract information, FCI, by providing adequate protective measures that are commensurate with the consequences and probability of loss, misuse, or unauthorized access to or modification of such information. Tom, next slide. Yeah, so at present, the DFARS clause still requires, as it stands, still requires compliance with the NIST 800-171 requirements. It does not take that away for the time being till CMMC is actually fully introduced. You as a business have to show compliance with both the NIST requirements as well as CMMC. This complicates the level of complexity for you as a business, since you'll have to literally show compliance with both of these regulatory frameworks. As you will see through the course of this webinar, you can achieve this enhanced cybersecurity posture with the SureShield solutions that Tom will be demonstrating. CMMC is a higher level of compliance and security attestation for the defense industrial base. The stakes for the DIB, the Defense Industrial Base, are getting higher and higher, as CMMC certification by a third party will become an absolute requirement to bid on RFPs or to have contracts awarded. If you as a business are found to be non-compliant with the CMMC practices, you will not be able to solicit business with the DoD. The new requirements mandate that each and every business have a system security plan. It doesn't matter what level that you fall in. You are to have a system security plan and a documented plan of action and milestones for identified compliance gaps. In addition, as a business, through the available portal that you have, the DoD Supplier Performance Risk System, contractors are now required or will be required to submit an assessment score for the CMMC, which is a must. So you cannot get away from this requirement. You are to basically go through this. So to reiterate, the CMMC is being introduced to allow for proper checks and balances to be there in the compliance certification process. The NIST 800-171 requirements, about 110 of them that one had to comply with, as compared to the CMMC, which has about 20 more, as they call them, practices, a total of about 130 that are applicable at level 3 organizations, is becoming a must. The additional requirement that CMMC is imposing is to have a third party through an independent CMMC accreditation board verify and validate the compliance statements or attest to the compliance assessments of CMMC of any given organization. So you cannot necessarily just like before just have a self-certification. You are actually going to have a third-party organization completely independent that will audit your CMMC assessments or your NIST 800-171 assessments, and then you will be submitting that score over to the SPRS. That's the primary difference between NIST and CMMC as of today. CMMC, it actually stands for a maturation model in terms of cybersecurity practices that are being put in place at your organization. There are 5 levels that CMMC.
Sorry, Sanjay. Having some movement of the slide process.
That's okay. Okay, so just go to the next slide,
Yeah.
Tom. Don't worry about this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are actually 5 levels that CMMC has designated or has classified that a particular business can fall into. And all of that literally depends upon, number one, what kind of business are you doing with the governmental agency or DoD? What kind of information are you transacting or having access to? And that basically will enable you. So all of the 300,000 plus businesses will fall into one of these. A majority of the vendors or businesses will probably fall into level 3, as we have actually determined. And that means that you will have to comply with about 130 of these practices that are laid out between the NIST as well as CMMC. I'm not going to actually go through the details of each one of these levels because I think most of you probably as of today understand what each one of these levels are and probably what level that you might be falling into. Although we have found that after an assessment is done, you probably might be thinking that you fall in level 2, but most likely are in level 3. We have determined that most businesses are transacting some form of federal contract information or CUI type of information and do fall into level 3. Level 4 and level 5 are for much more mature organizations that are literally dealing with a lot more intricate some systems and solutions development for the DoD and the like. And they have to definitely show a much more higher level of maturity in terms of cybersecurity hygiene that they practice. There are lots of checks and balances built at that particular level. So 3 important things to keep in mind. Number one, the CMMC levels that are indicated and their associated practices are cumulative, meaning that if you are to achieve CMMC level 3, it also means that you must demonstrate achievement of level 1 and level 2 controls and requirements. So they are all incremental or cumulative in orientation. Organizations must meet requirements for the level that they seek in both practice and the process realms. For example, a contractor that achieves level 3 on practice implementation and level 2 on process institutionalization will be certified at the lower CMMC level 2. DoD prime contractors must flow down the appropriate CMMC level requirement to their subcontractors, meaning that if you are subcontracting for the job that you have undertaken with other businesses, they automatically will come under the same preview, and you will be required to basically demonstrate that they are also complying with the CMMC practices or the NIST 800-171 as of today. You can definitely adapt to this new reality by adopting better data and workflow management systems. Today's mindset towards improving complexity of the work and the burden being imposed is to go to automation and data. So you can definitely establish good data workflow management systems in place that can keep you in a state of continued audit readiness and compliance, because risk of non-compliance means loss of business for you. At SureShield, we work with the defense industrial base to deploy comprehensive compliance and information security system solutions to ease the burden of complying with CMMC practices. From the demonstration of the SureShield solution suite, you will see how quickly and easily you can deploy these cloud-based solutions for your organization and be able to literally demonstrate state of compliance with both NIST as well as CMMC at the same time. What we have done in the back end, as Tom will actually highlight, we have cross-mapped and cross-linked the NIST regulations to the CMMC practices. So if you are assessing yourself against the NIST requirements, you will automatically be scoring against the crosswalked CMMC practices. You will also, through the solution suite, be able to establish required policies and procedures from your organization from a provided set of templates. That comes part and parcel of the solution. You will also be able to use the context-specific implementation and updated remediation guides provided within the solution to plug any compliance gaps that you might have. Furthermore, all of the SureShield solutions, as you will see, share a common end-to-end task workflow and management module that will keep you on top of any compliance or information system security gaps. It will alert you, it will notify you, it will bug you till you basically take care of whatever the deficiencies might be. It's a comprehensive, the security vulnerability scanning solution is unlike any other that you might have seen on the market. The solution that we provide is actually deployed via the cloud, very, very easy to deploy and implement, allowing you to perform comprehensive network scans with detailed analytics and updated remediation steps. We also have solutions that Tom will go into that actually highlight identifying any breach or mitigating breach of CUI or FCI type of data. The bottom line is, if you have good processes in place, good systems in place, with automation, you can achieve all of this in a very cost-effective manner. Now I'll pass it on back to Tom to walk you through some of the SureShield modules.
Great.
Thank
Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks. And thanks, everybody. Just to kind of reiterate what Sanjay had mentioned, as part of this process, and I think it's important to know that this is not a static process. Submitting those, you will need to, initially submit those scores, and we've actually organized and developed our product to, automatically create that scoring for you. But more so than it's very unlikely that anyone's going to score at the highest level. They wouldn't expect that. What they're going to expect is to see is where you stand now and what you're doing to improve that process, and thus the need for the types of reports that need to get submitted. So obviously preparing and then ongoing oversight for this process, where the complexities are in today is that you're going to need to meet both, even though NIST 800-171 is a subset of CMMC. At this point, today, as you stand, you're going to need to meet those requirements and the requirements under NIST for submitting the POAMs and the SSPs and the scoring tools, and then get yourself ready for the CMMC process, which will be coming, and most likely because of some of the even more recent, significant security breaches that have taken place, you can expect that there will be some accelerated processes to try to move and get that accreditation board in place and that accreditation process going. And most likely, within this year, that will probably take place. So you have to start to prepare to get ready now. And so that's going to require, as we said, an audit against those two different frameworks. As part of that process, you need to be doing ongoing vulnerability scans and assessments to really understand where your gaps are and what needs to be remediated. And then some documentation of the proof of the actions that you're taking to do those remediations. And as Sanjay pointed out as well, defined policies and procedures that are in line with those regulatory frameworks, not only having them in place, but demonstrating that as an organization, you're following them and implementing that throughout your organization. And as a component of that as well, you're going to need to identify the CUI data that you have and demonstrate that you have protection in place. And again, to one of the points that was discussed, with a lot of this that's taking place right now, there are a number of providers or suppliers that are thinking that they might be in those first tiers, those first two tiers, and then finding out very quickly. We have a tool that we'll talk to you about that can actually go in and do a scan of your environment and help you identify items that could be that are or could be classified as CUI. And we found that a number of our organizations have found very quickly that at a minimum, they're going to be at that level 3. So how we helped provide and support the process, all of this still will require, work and focus and dedication on the part of our customers, but our solutions are focused on really helping try to make that process more efficient, less costly, and actually more quickly actionable. So we provide several solutions that we'll talk about, but really a couple of things. One starts with the compliance frameworks. So we can provide a crosswalk of both the CMMC and the NIST 800-171 frameworks for that assessment. So you can conduct one assessment, but have it validate for both. And you can actually crosswalk that data to either. So if you've started, let's say, an 800 assessment, and you now want to expand that to the CMMC, all you have to do is click a button, and anything that is relatable to that will automatically auto-populate those others. So it's harmonized across those. We provide tools that allow you to do continuous vulnerability scanning across your network and assets, and help you identify not only where vulnerabilities lie, but also how to remediate those and to improve your overall security posture and demonstrate that. And we've even taken it as far as to what I would call crosswalking that with the compliance pieces, meaning if we identify something in a vulnerability scan that would indicate it was not meeting a particular compliance requirement, we help auto-populate that information and then allow you to go in, rather than having to do that in two different ways. You can do it once and then validate that information. And then last, a couple of other things is we have some very unique software that can actually run through your environment and help identify any CUI data that you may have. First of all, identify it, and then allow you to set rules and take actions on what, how and who can have access to that data, providing even further protection of that critical information. And then all of this comes with outputs from that process of the reports that you need to provide, including the POAM, the SSP, and the scoring assessment tool as well. And as I mentioned, and Sanjay mentioned as well, we also come with a library of templates, policies that can be leveraged if you don't have them in place right now, or you want to go in and modify those and update them to your requirements. So briefly, what are those tools within the overall, as we said, SureShield platform environment? One of those is what we call the Comply Shield, and that's the solution that allows you to do your assessments, your compliance assessments across those frameworks and others. If there are those that might be working in healthcare or other areas, this comes with a library of various types of assessments mapped to those various controls. And then off of those, being able to allow you to get the reports to show you where you stand. We have our Security Shield solution, which is our continuous vulnerability scanning and remediation and gap analysis tool. The Hack Shield application is the one that will allow you to identify the CUI data, know where that exists. One will help you understand where you may even are going to lie in terms of those levels that you'll need to comply with. And then off of all of that, you have the various types of reports, the documentations of compliance, the scoring reports, and the likes that are provided to you to help you conduct your business. And as we mentioned before, it's not expected to be a static process. It was expected that you will be continuously doing this as you're adding new services, you're adding new assets into your environment. You need to make sure that those are properly evaluated. And our systems will allow you to even do that gap analysis on those as well. So with that, I'm going to just provide a fairly high-level overview of the product and service offerings that SureShield has, and certainly we'll take questions at the end. If any of you want to have follow-up with more in-depth discovery or demonstration of any and all the solutions we have, we're looking forward to the ability to do that with you after this presentation today. So briefly, I'm going to exit and make sure, first of all, Sanjay, can you just confirm for me that you're seeing my sign into the SureShield?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to sign in as a customer of SureShield. One of the nice things with this is if you have multiple clients or you have multiple, maybe even have different businesses, you can actually control all those through one particular portal. But in this case, I'm going to go into this organization called Stanley Aeronautics Group. And you'll see that I have access to a variety of different products and services that I can work with. So I'm initially going to go into a combination of what we call the Comply Shield and the Security Shield. So in this dashboard, what it's showing me at a macro level are all the controls that I'm working with within this environment. I have access to a variety of different policies, and based upon how I have even, for instance, answered a particular audit control, it might tell me whether I'm out of compliance with one of those. But just as a quick note, if I wanted to go in and take a look at the policies, for instance, related to CMMC, you'll see it will bring up all of those particular policies, in this case, 16 of those, the same that would be with NIST. And you have access to these to go modify and update to your requirements as well. But in this framework, again, it's showing me all the different controls that I'm monitoring against. If I were to go into this particular area, you'll see now what it's listing for me is all the different regulations and standards that I'm doing my audits against. So you can see in this example, I actually have both CMMC and the NIST controls within here. It's very simple and easy for me to actually filter this down. So if I just wanted to look at, let's say, just CMMC related controls, then it's going to give me only those. And if I even wanted to go into below that, a particular area within those, I can go pick those up as well. So you can see how it's narrowed that down. And then think of this as an audit. So an audit, has various types of questions and around whether you've met the requirements, haven't met the requirements, documented the requirements. If I were to go into one of these particular areas, it's just giving me related to that particular issue, what the control is, whether I've met those, and then the ability also to look at the policies and procedures that may be related to that, the citation related to that. I also have, just so as part of this, the ability to distribute this work, just as an example. So, oftentimes it's not just done by an individual person. You may have others within your organization that are responsible for taking on certain sections of this. All I need to do is actually go up and go to areas like assign these particular areas to an owner. You can, even if you're working with an outside group, you can pass that information out to an outside entity to ask them to answer those questions for you. And of course, as these all get answered and completed, that then rolls up into the compliance reports and the likes that would be made available to you. So I'm going to exit out of here briefly. And just as I mentioned, within this particular environment, or this demo environment, I've also implemented what we would call our Security Shield solution. So this particular customer has implemented its regular ongoing vulnerability and assessment processes, where the system is scanning all the assets within that network, and it's then helping highlight those, what the status is of those, and what are the ones that require certain types of actions or attentions. And it will do that both at the host assets, at the software assets, and then in an even, what I would call, more rolled up process, allow you to look at things that relate to vulnerabilities across all of those, and even remediation activities that you can take place with these. So if I were just to say pick up on this, in this case, a host asset and I wanted to look at those that have the most critical nature to them. It will very quickly identify that for me. It will show me, for instance, what those are, what that particular IP is, what are the vulnerabilities. If I were to go into this particular asset, then I can see things. If I had done scans over time, it would show me a rolling difference in terms of the comparisons of those. And more importantly, what are some of the remediation steps that I need to take in order to fix these problems. So you can see here, it's telling me the different things that need to be done. In our reports, we'll even tell you an estimation of what the timing is to correct those particular problems. So when I say this is continuous, meaning if you are doing this on a regular basis, you'll see the deltas in terms of where you're at with that, in this case, that particular host today, and at a different point in time. Again, you can look at this at a variety of different levels. So, sorry, let me get back to. I'm just going to exit out for a second. Sorry about that. We'll come back in and go to Stanley. And back to our apps, the Comply Shield app. My apologies, I'm having a little trouble bringing up. Let me actually move across into one of the other solutions called the Hack Shield Manager. So to summarize on the previous, what it allows you to do is set up those assessments, crosswalk those assessments, distribute that work, and as well have the vulnerability scanning pieces that would go into that as well. I'm now going into the solution called Hack Shield. And what Hack Shield allows you to do, again, this is a very, very informative and helpful tool to be running even on the initial process, because it will help you identify any sensitive data that might be lying on various types of software services, host assets, and the like within your environment. And that includes CUI. So in this particular dashboard, if I were to go in and say, show me the sensitive data that I have and where it resides, you can see in this example, I've got it for a whole bunch of different types of information I might be looking for. But if I were to segment this down to specifically that data, it would show me what that particular CUI data is, what devices it resides on. And from there, I can actually utilize that to take particular actions to help protect that data as well. Putting encryption controls on it, specifying who can look at this, and if that data is being moved somewhere that it should not, it will automatically put encryption on that so that that data can never be accessed as well. So let me briefly come out of here. And then lastly, just as a high-level overview, there are just a significant number of different types of reports that you have available at your fingertips. Many of those that will help you meet those requirements for the reporting requirements, current reporting requirements. So for instance, if I went into this Comply Shield reporting tool, you'll see that I not only have reports on compliance that will help summarize where I stand with the audits that I've done, but then we also have specific ones related to the DFARS process. That includes rolling up issues for submitting your security system security plan, your plan of action and milestone plans that will need to be submitted, and all of this is automated for you. And then lastly, we've also run the NIST 800 against the assessment score process that was released, And so within that, if I were to run in the case of this report, it's showing me that this particular organization right now, as it relates to today, has an aggregated compliance score of 82. And then it would go ahead and break down those areas of where I've met the requirements and where I have not. So it's not something that you have to go put together yourself. The system will actually do that for you. In the other types of reports that are available, for instance, with the Security Shield, we talked about helping you target in where you can get the biggest bang for your buck. So when you're doing these types of scans, you have a lot of different things you might want to look at around the risk evaluations. We have comparisons and benchmarks where you can look and see how you're comparing to what you were doing before. But for instance, if I wanted to just take a quick look at, say, I want to look at my top remediation report, show me the areas that I have the biggest, that I have the biggest gaps in, and what will happen if I were to take care of and remediate this. So in this case, I've done a top remediation report, and it will summarize and give me information on, for instance, if I apply 20 remediations to 23 of the hosts, it's going to actually remediate almost 92% of my vulnerabilities and significantly improve my risk profile. And of course, organizations will like to see this in terms of where those gaps change and improve over time. The expectation is that by running this continuously, you're going to show that you're taking actions to regularly monitor and regularly improve on this process. And within all of our reports, you have a variety of different things you can do in terms of scheduling. So if you want this to run, let's just say you want to run this report to go to different people on a particular day, a particular month, a particular cycle, you can set that up for them and run that and have that go out to those individuals. If you want to download these different types of reports into things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint for presentation purposes, you can do that. And keep in mind, within these solutions, everything is control and users control based. So only people that have access will have access to this information and be able to do the types of processes that were outlined here. So that gives a fairly high level overview of the different tools and solutions that we have within the SureShield portfolio. It can help you, much more rapidly get to what you need to provide and do it in a very efficient fashion. All of our pricing around our solutions are based upon, in general, the size of the organization. So the smaller you are and the less you have, the less the costs are. But Sanjay, I'm going to just go back to the presentation briefly. And first of all, see if you have anything else you wanted to add as I finish this up.
No, I mean, all I want to highlight is, as you saw, all of the solutions basically are integrated with each other. The data is complementary to each one of those solutions. The security scanning solution, for example, once it does your security scan, it also harmonizes those to the appropriateness of CMMC practices or requirements. So it's crosswalked, again, in order to basically harmonize across the board. So you can auto score certain requirements, and you can have documented evidence or proof of compliance. So the bottom line, Tom, is what I wanted to highlight was integration across the solution suite with complementary data across the board. Gotcha.
Great. And then just to kind of summarize and roll up as far as the solutions, obviously they help lower your costs to meet the overall requirements by harmonizing across. With a cloud deployed vulnerability tool, you get very quick identification of where those gaps are and where the remediations need to take place, and really helps improve your overall security posture, which of course the government's going to be even more hypersensitive to these days. And from a practical business perspective, if you want to continue doing business in this environment, you're going to have to meet and you're going to have to comply with this. So there's no getting around it. To protect that business and to get ahead of your competitors, these solutions can help you do that in a much more rapid fashion. So Sanjay, if you want to summarize briefly, and then we can open this up to, I wanted to point out for all the participants here, there is an area in the toolbar for Q&A. We'll be, finishing up here shortly, and we'd certainly welcome any questions that you may have.
Right. So bottom line, the NIST 800-171 requirements are there today. CMMC has already gone into effect from November 30th, and you're to show compliance with that if you're already doing, if you're to basically solicit new business with the DoD. For those that are already in contract with the DoD, it will become applicable to you when it comes time for renewals and the like. CMMC, as indicated, will require third-party audit, and there will be CMMC accreditation board type institutions through which you will be able to get a certifier to basically help certify your scores. And it is those scores that you will basically be submitting to the SPRS. What we provide is the underlying technology to help simplify the compliance processes for you and literally to cover all aspects of compliance and security risk for your organization. What we have enabled is really enabled a state of continued readiness and protection of CUI within your organization with the solutions that we provide. Thank you.
Great. So we'll open it now to Q&A. You'll see if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, a toolbar should pop up that says Q&A, and you can go ahead and input your questions in there. Just as a note, in the next day or so, you should receive a follow-up thank you for attending, and that will also include access to this presentation for you. If you have any other immediate needs, please feel free to contact us at info@sure-shield.com, or you can visit our website at sure-shield.com. So why don't we go ahead, and I see we do have some questions coming up here. So let me go ahead, Sanjay, I'm looking at a few of these questions, and the first one is, can you explain how your system actually, you said, can help identify CUI data?
Yeah, so the solution that Tom presented, Hack Shield, literally there's a small agent that gets deployed on your endpoints. That particular agent, we have configured it specifically to be able to look for and identify any type of CUI data that you might have within any files or any applications that might be operating on that endpoint within your network. It will flag those. It will identify whether those files are actually currently protected or not. And if they are not protected, it will go ahead based upon the rules that you have set, go ahead and basically protect those files by encrypting them. And it will also track and follow any movement of those files thereon. So literally a very, very useful tool in terms of identifying CUI data that might exist within your organization that you might not know of. As Tom pointed out earlier on in the presentation, a lot of organizations do not realize that they're transacting CUI information. In actual fact, they are. So they fall within level 3 as opposed to level 2.
So another question, as far as the assessments, can you give me an estimation of costs? I can help them with that.
Sure.
And am I paying for two different assessments, I guess is one of the questions. So if I'm doing CMMC and NIST, is it requiring me to buy two different assessments? And so the answer to that is no. What we have done is allowed, because of that the crosswalk nature of this, for the customers that are working with us to do those assessments, we're not charging for two different assessments. For a an organization in general, the cost to utilize that tool is about $1,500 a year, and that allows you to invite other participants to participate with you. So very, very cost effective and very powerful, and that does include the once you've conducted those assessments, the reports that you need to put together to actually submit to the government. Okay, just a couple more. To that extent as well, then can you explain how the vulnerability, you said the Security Shield tool works? Do I have to install anything? Does someone have to come on premises to actually install anything on my computers?
You want me to take that, or you want to take
Yeah,
that?
if you want to go ahead and take that.
Sure. The SureShield Security Shield module that we have is actually, as I indicated earlier on in my presentation, very, very different from a number of other tools that probably folks are used to. The other tools literally require installation within your network by staff. On the other hand, the tool that we have is deployed via the cloud. So you download an agent through the cloud portal, through Security Shield, with all of the guided instructions that accompany it. And that cloud agent is deployed, and that is what scans your network, within which network that you have installed it, and submits the required data for analysis of the different vulnerabilities and the like that it discovers.
And I just want to point out, the question wasn't asked, but we're also a company that looks at best in breed. So we leverage the Rapid7, which is a market-leading vulnerability scanning assessment tool in the market. We leverage their software, but what we've done is we've enhanced it and made improvements on top that not only help to identify, but then also have made it, as we said, web-enabled or cloud-enabled, and then two, have built logic and information on top of it that not only help identify, but also allow you to understand how to remediate, what the time cost would be, and then roll that up into the various types of reports as well. And that's the only other questions that I see here for now. If the folks have anything else, please go into that Q&A and we'll wait a couple more minutes. Otherwise, I'll wait just another minute to see if anything else comes across. And if not, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. And let me just refresh to see if anything else has come. No, I'm not seeing anything at this time. So yes, once again, please, if you would like any follow-up or you do have questions after the session, please contact us. And as I mentioned, you will be getting a follow-up. Thank you for coming, and additional, we'll have the presentation information as well. So thank you all for attending, and look forward to the possibility of serving you.
Thank you very much.